Hey everyone, Ameen here at Studio Kids. Welcome. We are going to be working on sketchbooks today. I have a sketchbook. I have many sketchbooks, but the one I'm going to show you today is one that I started 18 years ago. So I worked on it for 10 years, solid. It's basically a baby book for my son. When my son was born, I realized that everything that I was putting into my sketchbook was about him. So it just turned into a collection of journal entries, photographs, paint, everything that would go into my sketchbook normally, but it was revolving around this child. So that's what I'm going to share with you today. We are going to talk about how do you make your sketchbook a collection of thoughts, layers, paint, doodles, collage of mementos, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to hit pause and we'll go over our materials and jump right into it. All right, for today you will need a sketchbook, watercolors, a number 6 round brush, one of these. I have a washi tape today because my daughter went through a washi tape hoarding process years ago, so we have a lovely box full of washi tape. Some markers, some pastels, just scraps of pastels, so little bits and pieces. Markers, make sure you have like some really light colors because those are really good for layering on top of text, so you can still read what you've written, but it's a great way to just add some marks. Scissors, or you can just tear, and I have my watercolors here. So let's have a look at this book and let's talk about my process. So I'm going to start with this page. Often I open up my sketchbook and I like to just use it as my journal. So I'll just write down whatever's going on that day. If I haven't been there in a while, what's been going on the last few weeks, whatever it happens to be. Maybe days will go by and the only thing I'm going to do is write. And then I'll start adding more layers to it. If I'm in the studio and it's at the end of the day, I've just had a class and I've got leftover paint, I take that leftover paint and I add marks to my sketchbook. So there was some collage that I'd added. So from that piece of collage, I pulled out the colors. There's a little piece of paper in here and there's bright blue. So then I painted this part blue. This is green paper, so I painted that out in green. And then to another page, just covered the whole page in blue. And then on top of that, added bits and pieces. So photographs. This was a couple of pictures that I'd taken in a row to show the landscape. So I just cut it up, spaced it out, took a little piece of it and added it up to the corner. So when I'm collaging, I don't think of just taking one page and just sticking something in the middle and being done with it. I like to bring these two pages together in some way. If I am collaging something that's a square or a rectangle, make use of these edges. So you are repeating those shapes. This is one big rectangle. Within that rectangle, I have another rectangle. So it's using that corner space. Text, layers of paint, and then collage. I keep random things that I find interesting. So envelopes that actually have stamps on them and postmarks, tear them off. This is a negative. How many of you know what a negative is? Go ask your mom and dad. Photographs, bits of fabric. This is a line of sewing, so I actually took this page and ran it through the sewing machine because that sewn line adds some texture and paper sews really nicely. Collage, that's just cut out with some fancy scissors. So lots of collage on this piece. The collage paper is often what's dictating the color theme for those two pages. So this paper it's a wrapping paper from soap. So I cut it out here, made use of the corner, and then I cut another piece out here that went across. So it joins those two pages together. Mixed up a quick little bit of an ochre paint that was similar in color to this. It's not exact, it's not perfect, but just as a way of putting down some color. There's some red marks in this map, so I just tried to pull out some of those red lines. This is a page that's a perfect spot for me to, even though this book is technically, it's kind of almost done, there's so many pages where there's still a lot of white space. So if I just felt like playing around, this is a spot where I would come back to and add some more stuff to this page. Maybe just a border. Or there's a line here. So how about if I just continue this line and have it connect with that one. So now that kind of brings these two things together. So I've got this line coming through here. Well, why don't I take that and have that connect. So it kind of brings that together. And then on these edges, now I am just freeform and I'm just doodling. I'm just making marks, just kind of having fun with the materials. So that's really how this whole thing comes together. It's back and forth. It's creating layers, but then turning the page. Put a little something in there so that when you turn the page, air will still pass through so that can dry. The paint's not very thick, so it's not going to take that long. Here's another spot where, again, years ago this was done, but there's a lot of white space on there. Again, I'm going to do the same thing. I've got that red line, so I'll take the red line out of the map, and I am going to do the same thing. I love adding a little frame, a little border, but maybe this time I'm just going to leave it on the bottom. I'm not going to go all the way up the sides, but I will repeat and do it on the top. Repetition, pattern, these are basic design elements. It's what kind of helps it all come together and look like it's finished. And I like that red a lot. So there's these little spots, little oval spots, round spots. So maybe I'm just going to repeat those round spots. And this is something that you're going to see throughout this book, is there's a lot of spots that get repeated. But it just adds a little something to the page, a fun way to add a layer, to make it a little more interesting. But I'm just playing and exploring with the paint. All right. So that's pretty much how this thing has developed. With your text, be creative with the way that you write. You can write in blocks, in little shapes. You could paint first. So that's often a way that I've started, is just put down a whole page of paint, really loose, and then did the writing on top of it. I believe that's what happened here. So the paint was done first and then the writing was added. I'm going to jump right to the end and tell you how I finished this book off. This last page in this, and there's all kinds of things. There's things sticking out. There's little tabs. So there's an envelope here, and there's things inside the envelope, and the envelope has been hand stitched in. Collage again. And then this is my last page. I graduated from high school this year, so I wanted to finish the page off with his graduation announcement and just a few more little notes. So I left him a little message, And also on this page, I made a list of, we've traveled a lot. So I just went through our passports and made a list of all the places that he's traveled. But I was thinking big trips. And then as I was playing around with this, I realized there was a whole bunch of things that I missed. So I grabbed a green marker to keep it nice and bright. And then I just started jotting down a few more notes for him. I had these, I put it in, I didn't have glue stick today. So this is actually written on something that was in the book that he had made for me years ago. So I folded that up, put it down with some washi tape to make a little flap. This was done years ago. This is just a piece of wrap. Perfect. That's what I can put on my very last page. So there's a lot of going back and forth. The places you'll go. Where is he going? He's off to college. He's on a big journey now. I had these little post-it notes throughout here, just pages that I wanted to document. So when I put this down, the tape I tore off was really long, so I had a little scrap piece. So then I just grabbed the post-it note, put it there at an angle. So now I have a square that lines up with these edges, another rectangle that lines up with the edges, and then a smaller square that fits on there. And it's post-it note, so a quick little note. So different sizes, but the shapes are kind of repeating. And then on this page, collage is a wonderful way to cover up marks that you didn't like, or maybe you wrote something and you don't want to see that anymore. Well, collage something on top of it. This is just the back page of the sketchbook. Sketchbook is a place where you're going to make notes, you're going to try out a pen, you're going to doodle. So I just put this, so that kind of covers this up. And it's an old train ticket. And then, of course, I had more things that I was thinking about. So I grabbed my markers, Sharpies, grabbed a few colors, and just started writing my thoughts down. And as the thoughts changed, instead of changing paragraphs, I just changed the colors. Took the washi tape and I made a little border around this with those colors. And then that is where we come to an end. I have lots of sketchbooks. So the one that I'm carrying with me these days is just this little black one. It's not great for adding water media to, but it's nice and it's light. So if I just have a pencil, then I'll just write. There are so many things going on in the world today that you are definitely going to want to reflect back on your feelings and your thoughts of what was going on. 2020, so much happening. So your sketchbook is the perfect place to do that. These pages are thin, so the marker bleeds through. And I sometimes do a lot of writing, and I don't always want to read what I wrote. It's just the process of writing that makes me feel better, knowing that I put those thoughts down. But then as we get into the other pages, I did want to remember stuff. So if it's bled through, I will sometimes leave that side of the page blank and draw on it and keep going. Layers, layers, layers. Lots more to happen in here. So there we are. What will you do in your sketchbook? Your material list again. Follow me on YouTube, Ameen Dhillon. Give me a like. Blog, studiokids.com. That's been going on for about 10 years. So there's lots of art ideas there. And step by step these days, it'll correlate with that YouTube video as we post them. I'm going to try to post every week or two. Give you some fun things to follow and ideas to try. So, go play in your sketchbook. Have fun.